It says I'm recording, so that's fine.
Oh, great.
You have a backup.
Well, I'll put both of them up and people can vote for their favourite. Right, I'm going to get my drink. Gordon, thank you so much for doing this.
Very welcome.
Really appreciate
It's strange.
it. So I'm very excited.
My parents are here.
Yay!
Yeah.
I was wondering. Like,
No.
I was like, oh, did you?
Bridget McAllister is connected.
Bridget McAllister. Oh, do I get to meet Mummy Katie? I have a book. I have a book from Bridget McAllister.
You
Do you think he'll join our cult?
I don't think so, because she likes to go to bed at 9.
Does that mean that I have to be on my best behaviour if people's mums are here?
No, she's
You can just give them
fun.
an accurate representation.
I mean, okay. I'll go get my drink.
Do we get to know what stories you're going to tell, Gordon?
Sure. Well, I did realize as I was sitting trying to cram them all into my brain today that I could have written down some of this stuff instead of trying to, because normally I'm standing in front of people telling stories and not referring to things. But in this, you can't see what's here. I could just write it down. So yeah, I feel a bit foolhardy at this
We
stage.
know. What kind of bard are you?
Yeah, you know.
Ancient
Zach
Greek,
and Robert
probably.
are wearing. Oh, you first.
You go.
Hmm?
I think
I-
Zach and Robert are wearing the same shirt.
Yes.
Oh, I missed Chex Day.
No, I think Zach's got red in it, haven't you?
Mine's a black
Those are
shirt.
definitely
Yours looks blue.
different, but
Mine's
They look
blue.
very similar from here. They're not. I'm not saying they're literally identical, but they're very similar.
They are similar, yeah, you're right.
Man.
I'm no baked sourdough today, so you know, all the hipster points.
You're not drinking craft ale, though.
No, I'm drinking tea.
and you have to work on your beard game.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you're definitely behind on that.
I feel if I grew a beard, I'd have to lose the glasses.
Really?
No, you'll be fine.
Just due to
You can
tickle
over
the
hipster.
boxes.
Yeah. Well, you already shave your head, so you could do the shaved head grown like full.
That's actually a thing, like the shaved head.
I call it the
That's
upside
his
down.
point.
bit.
I think that's the point, that he doesn't want to be any more hipster than he already is.
Yeah.
You could stop making sourdough and coffee.
Mm.
I can't use a beard on purpose. I can't do that.
Yeah, if I had to
Bread,
choose
grow a
between
beard.
bread and coffee and a beard, I would definitely not choose the beard.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Where would you store your bread and coffee if not in your beard?
Hmm.
Bridget's looking very ominous with her backlighting.
Yes.
Bridget.
Hello.
You're muted, Bridget.
Zach can probably do something about that. Can you not, my love?
Oh, hang on. That isn't the mute symbol. That's a no
No audio.
no audio symbol.
Oh.
Oh.
Maybe they don't have a microphone.
Hey, Angelo.
No, because otherwise you don't have a webcam with no microphone.
Hey,
It'll be odd.
I think it'll be if she didn't click use computer audio. You know, when Zoom opens up, depending on what device you're on, there's a use computer audio option. And people sometimes just kind of click that dialog box away, thinking it's not important, and then this happens, unfortunately.
So what does that mean? Does it mean they can't speak through it, or can they hear it? Or
It means that they either need to make that dialog box come back up again, but I don't know how to do that because I've never dismissed it, or maybe come out the call and come back in again. Sorry, I'm guessing because I've never dismissed it before.
Bridget, give us a wave if you can hear us.
We can't hear you.
Bridget, your audio isn't connected, so we can see you, but you don't have any audio.
I unmute her.
She's not muted.
I
She's
think
not
they're probably
muted.
trying to work out what the problem is.
I mean, Katie, do you want to like text your mother, or are you?
They can hear. I know they can hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
Hey, Moo.
Oh,
We still can't hear you.
still
Oh. But the audio not working symbol has gone away.
Hmm.
Yeah,
One step closer.
definitely progress.
Hmm.
But those are two wonderfully confused faces.
Hi, Jonas.
Hey, Jonas.
Hi, Martin.
Hey, Martin.
I am.
I so want Martin's
Hi,
chair.
hi, Jeremy.
You need a
Hello.
storytelling throne, Gordon. Are you wearing your robe?
I'm not.
Or a storytelling hat.
I'll be back.
I'm also not sure that Martin's chair works outside of that room. Like, it's a package, you know, including Martin, of course.
Yeah. He evaporates if you try to take him out of the room.
I mean, does the room even work without him?
I'm not sure why you love this chair so much. I've got these cool purple ones, but like this is just a chair.
I'm just thoroughly jealous of your little household.
So good. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. This is day 5 that I've been in this room continuously, though, so you know, there are downsides.
You haven't been to the bathroom?
Well, yeah, okay, I've been to the bathroom.
That's a good point.
Not too much longer now, though.
Wednesday.
Oh, I'm so excited for you guys.
I mean, which country are we talking about here?
What happens on Wednesday?
Oh, I get to
Martin
go
can
out
leave
again.
his house.
I've been self-isolating because I had a fever for 2 days. Very mild, but like don't get to go outside for another couple of days.
Well, I'm very excited for you then, Martin.
Yeah. How are you doing now?
Gordon's back.
I'm totally fine. I was like slightly ill Wednesday, Thursday, and then fine from Friday. Thank you.
I'm glad.
This robe was not meant for sitting. So while I sit down, okay. I'm just looking at the time.
Oh, is it story time?
I think we might be getting towards story time.
Yeah. That's exciting.
So I might give you a little bit of background about what we're going to do.
Oh, just quickly, Zach, are you definitely recording something? Because I'm gonna keep mine on gallery view so I can look at everyone's faces.
That's fine.
Use your recording for the upload if that's all right.
Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is hear some exciting old Irish myth tales. Now, I was a little while ago, I was looking into all the great Irish love stories, and they all involve chaos and death, except one. There's one that isn't awful and terrible and everyone dies. Well, not everyone dies all the time. So I thought maybe I could tell that story. And then I realized to tell that story, like all these stories, they sort of interact with each other and there's like bits of context that might be useful. So I thought I would tell 2 stories. And then I realized that, of course, all things come in 3s. So maybe I should tell 3 stories. But then I realized that we've got too many of these 3-word slogans. So maybe we'll just do 2. So we're going to see what happens and find out what stories we're going to tell. So again, I don't know. I know some of you have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever of Irish myth at all, except that there's some myths and there's Irish. And I assume some of you have probably heard various tales of Cuchulainn and Fionn McCool and all the sort of brave, exciting things. But we're going back further than that to some tales of the Tuatha De Danann, who were the godlike people who arrived in Ireland in one of the waves of invasions that happened. There was just like lots of them. It all gets complicated, but that's a whole different story. But I think we're just about ready. Is everyone, can Zach mute people?
Yes. Mute all.
Are you gonna say?
Now I need to find Gordon.
Oh. Thank you, host. Cool. Right, are we all ready for a story? Then we'll begin. The first story is about Boann. Now, Boann was a woman of craft and skill and magic. And she was one of the first to come across from the 4 magical cities to the north to arrive in Ireland. When the Tuatha De Danann arrived, they arrived in a great mist, it was said, perhaps a magical mist, or perhaps it was just that they burned their ships when they arrived. When she arrived, she knew well what she was looking for, because one of the things that she knew about Ireland was that somewhere in the center was a well of wisdom that was part in this world and part in the other world. And she was seeking this with the help of her husband, Nuada. Now, Nuada and Boann were a fierce couple. They were excited and excitable in love and in everything that they did. They talked long before they came to Ireland about all the things they would do there. They made all the plans. They focused really hard on every single piece of their preparation, so much so that when the Tuatha De Danann decided to arrive in Ireland, immediately Nuada was declared the High King. And when they got there, Boann found the Well of Wisdom, and she realized that it was a bit more dangerous than she had first thought, that anyone that would look into that Well of Wisdom would be destroyed by it, that the knowledge of the other worlds, all of the knowledge in the universe, would be too much for any one person. And so she said to Nuada, set some guards at this well, place your best men there and let no one come to this well, for it is dangerous. And Nuada agreed. Now, there were other people in Ireland at that time, the Fir Bolg, and a great battle was fought. And Nuada led the charge of the Tuatha De Danann against the Fir Bolg, and it was a mighty epic battle. This isn't a battle story, so we're going to skip that bit. But Nuada, his arm was cut off. Now, they believed that the High King had to be perfect, for he represented the land and the land represented the king. And without an arm, Nuada was seen to be not quite whole, so maybe the land would suffer for this. So Dian Cecht, who was the great healer of the Tuatha De Danann, fashioned an arm out of silver. He took silver from the very rock, attached it to Nuada, and weaved muscle and sinew and bone until Nuada walked again, whole, but with a silver arm. But whether it was from the battle or from the arm, Nuada was different from that time on. He talked to Boann, but with less love in his eyes, with less care. And he touched her rarely, but when he did touch her, it was cold. And it didn't matter if it was the silver arm or his regular arm. She felt the cold. She was also not seen. Councils were called. She would sit there and he would just ignore her, pass her by. Even when others, kings from the land, came by to talk things, it was almost as if they started to ignore her as well. She was avoiding the well for quite a while, and she started doing what she often did, which was weaving. Not just anything, but she decided to weave her hair. And she wove it into a cloak until it covered her entirely. And when she wore this cloak of her hair, she was invisible to all. And so she walked the land, and she felt a sorrowness upon her. Each step of the land felt cold. And although Nuada's ruling was apparently wise, there was no love there. The land felt cold and barren, and Boann felt invisible and unseen. Until one day, in spring, she was walking by a river, and from a distance she heard some music playing through the spring and started walking up the hill. At the top of the hill was a large oak tree, and in the shade was a man playing a harp. The music was coming from there, and as she walked up the hill, she felt the heat from the land entering into her feet, entering into her legs, warming her. She walked up towards this man who she recognized but had not seen before too many times. He was the Dagda, and he was a good god. He was a happy god. He loved to smile and to sing, and he could play that harp like no one else. He loved to entertain. He loved to feast. He could make such incredible feasts that would last for days. He was just delightful. But more than that, while he was playing, he paused and he looked up. And though she was still in her cloak of invisibility, he saw her and he smiled. And at that, Boann felt a surge in her body again, a change. She took out a dagger and she sliced off her hair at the roots and let that cloak fall. She walked towards the Dagda, now fully visible, fully seen, and he laughed just out of sheer happiness and joy and said, "Sit with me and sing." And so they did. And they sang and they talked of this and that, and Boann fell instantly and madly in love, and the Dagda too was in love. And she said, "Oh, this is awkward. I'm married to the High King, and I cannot have a dalliance here with you. I have to be home by the end of the day." And the Dagda said, "Well, if we only have a day, we'll make it a good day." And he looked up to the sun. He winked. And the sun winked back and stopped. And at that, there was some flowers, petals floating by, but Boann had noticed they had stopped too. Everything had stopped except for them. And so they spent that day that was not just a day in each other's arms. And after a while, when they realized, oh, we've got more time, we can keep going, they spent longer and longer and longer and longer in each other's arms and other parts of their bodies, and then said, "Let's go for a walk. I'm getting hungry." And so they walked and they went around the hill, and it was still noon, and they found some hedgerows and they picked some berries and they made a jam, and it was delicious, and they smeared it over themselves and enjoyed it. And then they went and found some nuts and they crushed it into a paste and licked it off each other's fingers. They were delighted in love as they traveled around all of Ireland, enjoying that day. And their love grew. And as that day, which lasted months, continued, Boann's belly grew, for she was pregnant by the Dagda. A year and a day went by for them, when a day went by for the outside world. And towards the end, as the sun was setting over the magnificent cliffs in the west, Boann realized that things would have to change, for she could not take this babe back to Nuada and would have to let it go, and she could not see the Dagda ever again. And the Dagda said, "It's all right, I will take this child and I will foster him with the most amazing people that you can possibly foster any child with. It's all right, he'll be looked after, he's going to be great. And, you can see him from a distance. It'll be fine." But we had this day. We always had this day. And then the sun set. And at this point, Dagda left with the young child who they called Aengus, and Boann returned to Nuada. Life back at Tara, where Nuada lived, was no longer quite the same. It had been cold before, but now it was cold in a different way, for she could remember that joy and that excitement, but there was nothing left. And since wanting to get back outside at some point was denied to her, she racked her brain. She thought there must be a way out of this. And then she realized maybe there was. For although she couldn't think of it now, there was possibly a way she could expand her mind, gain more wisdom, find out a way to see her son again. And so she went back to that hill where she had first met the Dagda. And she remembered where her cloak had fallen. Fortunately, it was invisible, so no one else had found it, but she picked up that cloak. She wrapped it around herself, and she went to the Well of Wisdom. She walked past the guards who could not see her, and she stood at the edge. She steeled herself and prepared to look in. She knew what she wanted. She wanted to know how to protect her son, how to look after him, how to always be with him. And so, after a breath, she stared into the well. The knowledge hit her with the force of a torrential river. She was blown backwards, and then in an instant, she knew what she had to do, and she started to run. She ran from the well as water poured out of it, swept away the guards, and chased her down, down, further into the valley, the river carving its way towards her. She ran and she ran towards a place known as Boann, which is where she knew her son would live. She ran as the river carved its way around this place. And at points it felt that the river was catching up, and then she was getting away, and then she was the river. And her body was no longer her body as it was starting to get ripped to pieces as the river hit it and slapped it off boulders and rocks and eventually plunged into the sea itself. Some say she managed to escape by turning into a seal because, you know, who doesn't love a selkie? But she had in fact become the River Boann. They created a protective wall around Boann and would always be there to look after Aengus. And because she had opened that door, that portal to the other worlds, another river had appeared in the sky above. Across the entire sky, the Milky Way was now visible, a river that led to the other world. So that if ever you look up and see that Milky Way, you know the other world is close and that the love of Boann is eternal. I just pause for the first one. It's very strange when you can't hear anyone. It's so weird.
We love you, Gordon. We love
you, Gordon.
Those were
more.
He's so good.
But I missed everything, but there's gonna be more, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna do more. So that one, is sorry. I want to see the yes.
Hey.
Yes, Dagda is hot. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. Okay.
Katie requests a toilet break.
Yes, we could have a toilet break.
Oh, that means I can get another drink.
Mm-hmm. Toilet / drink break.
I was definitely picturing Dagda as you, Gordon. Or a Gordon-shaped god.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely possible.
too.
Yeah, I
He
was too.
glowing with joy when you were describing him.
You described him so effectively, like as you were talking, you know, he's happy and he's full of joy and he loves a feast, and it just, you came alive in such a way. I was like, yeah,
Do
Dagda.
love a feast.
I just thought he sounded like Zach.
Yeah, that in my head it was Zach. Just to say,
that?
genuinely was.
Is Zach?
Dagda.
Dagda.
Oh, okay.
He's
I didn't
basically.
realise Zach played the harp.
Just very happy.
He plays the double bass. That's actually surprisingly close.
We're very
Either way, Dagda's hot. I'm in it.
He's got it going on. Also, if any of you ever want to visit Boann, you totally can at some point when this island is open again. These days it's called Newgrange, and it's an old passage grave tomb. It's about 5,000 years old, but it's
and it's amazing, and you should definitely go.
Isn't that where Circa has the
Newgrange Fusion.
Yeah.
Oh, fusion event thing, yeah.
Oh, really?
There was going to be some fusion event in Newgrange. That rings a bell.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the old name is so much better.
It is. It's kind of cool.
I probably can't pronounce it reliably, but Newgrange is so boring by comparison.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is the new bit of the Grange. It's fair enough. Okay, are we ready to go for the happy story now?
Yes.
Oh, yes, please.
So, I think if we're all ready, Zach, can you do the magic?
Tara's just connecting. Can we wait like 30 seconds?
Oh, we can wait 30 seconds. This one starts with a dance. It doesn't. So sorry to disappoint. We're moving on. So the next story. This is the story that I found that I was quite excited about. It's called "The Dream of Aengus Og," who was the young child that we met in the first story. So this is his story. So Michael, are we good to go? Thumbs up from Michael.
I think so.
Okay. Yep. In that case, we're ready. Okay. The Dream of Aengus. Aengus was the son of the Dagda and Boann. And he was lovely. He was lovely. And not just lovely in that way that you sometimes see of people go, oh, they're lovely. He was love itself. He'd grown up fostered by Medea and Fumloch, who were amazing foster parents, and they loved him. And all his siblings loved him, and all the other people who came to see loved him. And then when he grew up, he got a job, a good hard-working job, ferrying the souls of the beloved dead from this world to the other world at Boann. It's hard work, but someone's got to do that. He was loved by the people who came in those weeping times, and he was loved by everyone else because he had so much love. He was created from it, and it did not hurt that he was hot as heck. Seriously. So while Aengus Og walked around and would meet people, they would see him and instantly think, wow, he is fine. And then he would see them, and being a person so full of love would say, you're fine. And then this fine would go back and forward until eventually it got beyond the PG-13 rating of this story. It was a thing that was known around Boann, that while it was a place of mourning and death, it was also a place of a lot of hot parties, a lot of sexy times at the dance events. It was crazy. So everyone loved him, but there was something different, or some aspect of love that he was missing, which some of his friends did mention to him occasionally when he boasted of. They call me the god of love. I know everything about love. I know all about this thing and that thing and this maneuver and just all the things that you could possibly know. I know how you use a man's armpit in sex. And they were like, look, we know this, Aengus. We know you know a lot of things, but there's one thing you don't know, which is heartache, because you just love all of us and we all love you, but come on, get over yourself. Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. So he loved his life and he loved everything. And then one night he went to bed after a successful day of not doing much except wandering around, doing a bit of harping, doing a little bit of hunting. There was no one to take through the passage to him, so he just had a nice old fine day, and he went to sleep. And he awoke, and there was a woman at his window. And she was someone he had never seen before. She was tall, wearing a white dress. And she had white hair. At first he thought it was blonde, then silver, but then realized it was white, long hair. And around her neck was a golden chain. She was beautiful. And Aengus was speechless. He tried to say, "You're amazing," but the words stuck in his throat. And she looked at him with a gentle smile on her face. She didn't approach. She didn't say anything. She just smiled at him. Eventually, he stammered out, You're so fine. Who are you?" And then he woke up. He was really annoyed at that dream ending because it was a pretty good dream. He spent the whole next day telling everyone about his dream because, as we all know, the most interesting thing in the world is listening to other people's dreams. It's a fact. So because of that dream, everyone was like, "Oh, Aengus is gonna be strange. He's been at the beer again. Who knows? It's fine." But he went to bed that night again. He said, "I hope I have that dream again. That was great." And what do you know? He fell asleep, and at the window, stepping in, was that same beautiful woman. And he smiled eagerly and excitedly. And she had a little smile on her face. And as he went to say and ask again, "Who are you?" she just held up her finger to his lips, and he stayed quiet. She took out a harp and started to play. And the music was ridiculous. It was so good. It was so beautiful. It was so haunting. It was just incredible. Aengus was taken aback by this. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to speak. He wanted to say something, but he waited until the song was over and then said, "That was so good. That was amazing. And also, who are you?" And he woke up. He was getting annoyed at this. He wanted to know who she was. Also, was she a figment of his imagination? Was she real? This was strange. So the next day didn't go by quickly enough. He sat there twiddling his thumbs, not doing much of anything, looking around, chatting to some people. It's like, "What's happening? Oh, I've got this thing tonight. Hurry up, it's going to happen. I've got this thing. I've got to go and see this girl." And they're like, "Oh, who's the girl?" It's like, "I don't know." It's like, "That's unlike you. You usually know everything about people as soon as you meet them." Like, it happens. He went to bed. Keen. A little bit early. Couldn't get to sleep. Eventually fell asleep. And there she was again at the window. She had her harp. And again she said, "Shh." And as he stayed quiet, she played for him. And this time she sang. And of course, her voice was beautiful. It flowed out over him into his ears, into his brain. It squished it up into a mush until he was just doting on her. And he paused. He wanted to say something at the end, but he knew each time he asked who she was, he would wake up. So instead, he decided to ask a different question. He said, "So, nice weather?" And she said, "Yes." "Results! I can talk, and now I don't need to ask who you are." And he woke up. For weeks, this went on. Each night he would go to bed, try and get a little bit more out of her. Each night she would come and she would sing at him. She would play at him. And eventually, he would start to speak not about her, but about himself. And she would let that happen. She would say, "Carry on, tell me of your stories." And so Aengus told her all the exciting stories he had. "Oh, there was this one time when I did this thing and it was great. And then there was this other time I did this thing and it was also great. And then this other time with like 3 of us and it was so amazing." And she seemed to enjoy it. But each time he asked too many questions about her, he would wake up. He was, yeah, come on, get to it. This must go somewhere. After a year and a day of this, he was getting vexed because towards the end, she was not just singing at him. She was not just listening to his stories. She started to approach him. She started to walk towards him as he was lying there in his bed. She would walk towards him, get closer. He could smell her, and then she's gone. And then the next night she would walk even closer until they were almost touching. And then she'd be gone. This tease went on for a year and a fucking day until one night he went to bed and she wasn't there. He was a bit confused when he woke up. He'd a rather strange dream about giraffes, and he wasn't quite sure what that was, so thought nothing too much of it, but went back to sleep that night, keen to see her again. But the same thing happened. She was not there that night. And he decided that maybe I should just stay in bed all the time. Maybe she's only coming during the day. I'll just stay in bed. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So he stayed in bed and was waiting for her. She's going to come. She's going to. She didn't appear. And after a few weeks of this, people started to get worried. His friends Cian and Turin came in and said, "Aengus, you've been in bed for a few weeks. Do you want to leave? It's been 2 weeks. You're allowed to go. You can get out. Sure. And he's like, "Go away from me. Life is over." Like, what? "Everything is the worst, and I shall now die." Pull yourself together. What is going on? He says, "Nope, get out. And so they left. Well, they were vexed. They had no idea what's going on here. This guy is just, something's wrong with him. We've never seen him like this. What are we going to do? And he said, "Let's call in the master physician, Cian's father, Dian Cecht, the healer of the Tuatha De Danann, who was so fabulous in his healing, with a tragic story that we can tell another time, who came along and said, oh, this young man is not sick of body. He's lovesick. I would treat him by just telling him to buck up, young lad, get yourself sorted out." And Dian Cecht left. not the greatest hero in the world, but, you know, he did his best. Meanwhile, Caer turned to say, oh, this is no good. Well, let's go and get his father. Something's up. So they went to get the Dagda, who showed up in full style, appeared, being magnificent as he was. He'd just been hosting a 3-week-long feast, which everyone agreed was the best feast since the previous one. He could do feasts all year long. And the weird thing was, even after like 5 or 6, still amazing. They didn't lose their excitement. They weren't, how did the Dagda tell you? Anyway, he shows up and Aengus is there going, woe is me, woe is me. Dagda says, what's wrong? Says, woe is me, for I am in love with a woman I cannot have. Well, that's pity about you. It's sad, but tell me more, I suppose. And Aengus said, well, she appeared to me, and she's tall, and she's quite pale, and she's got white hair and a golden chain around her neck. He said, well, okay, there's not that many people in Ireland. I'll go and have a look. And so the Dagda set out to have a look, asking around for, has anyone seen a fierce, attractive woman with a chain around her neck, white hair? And he searched around and he searched around, and he spent a lot of time doing this because every place he would go to, he would get stopped by people who would say, Dagda, we're just making some food. Do you want to help? And the Dagda would say, do I? I think we're going to turn this little meal into a feast. And so it was. There was a feast all the time. Aengus was being very sad in his bed and wasting away. And the Dagda wandered around, eventually coming back and, I don't really think there's any such person. I think it's all in his head. And as the Dagda was riding along by the banks of the Boann suddenly changed course and stopped him from walking. And he tried to walk again, and the Boann changed course again. It's like, what is this river doing? Until the river formed itself into the shape of a woman who he had known long ago, Boann. And she looked at the Dagda and said, love of mine, you are an idiot. My boy is in trouble and you can help. And the Dagda says, I'm helping. He's just had a dream. I'm going around Ireland. Yes, I know, feasting, but you can help. Well, what can I do? I've already tried things. I've tried looking. What do you think I should do? She said, there's one thing you haven't tried. I'm not your only lover, Dagda. There's another that can help. And at this, the Dagda's heart went cold. For he knew of all his lovers, there was only one that Boann could be referring to. Only one who had the sight of the future, who could see things that were not yet and would be able to help. He said, I don't think we should do that. She'll ask a price and the price will be too high. And Boann replied, she will not ask a price that will harm my son. Tell him where you can find her. And so the Dagda went to Aengus, a little bit cautious. He said, Aengus, my boy, there is a way to find out who this woman is, but you'll need to go to a forest and talk to a woman there. Aengus is no stranger to talking to women. So he thought, well, this is fine. I've got a lead. I will go there immediately. The Dagda said, just be careful. He said, use protection? What are you saying? No, be careful. Aengus was ready for an adventure. He had languished in this bed for so long. He had enough of this. It was time for the heroic adventure part of the story. Off we go into the woods. Nothing dangerous ever happens in the woods. It'll be fine. And so he traveled in. He brought himself his spear. He brought himself a little bit of a potion just in case. He brought himself the knowledge that this was going to be an epic, fun adventure full of excitement and daring do. The woods were colder than he thought, and it was raining more than expected. And the insects bit at him as he walked through the wood. And the crows were cawing a little bit too much. There was a river there, and as he stepped towards that river, the crows cawing and echoing around, he saw a woman standing at the river, washing something. She was young, but odd looking, tall, gangly, very large eyes. But he blinked and she was gone. And in her place was an old crone. And he blinked again, and in her place was a queen of air and darkness and beauty. Long dark hair, long dark robes. The Morrigan. Aengus walked towards the Morrigan, knowing in his heart that this was the battle goddess. She could see into the future and know who would die and when. And while Aengus took the beloved dead over into the other world, the Morrigan took those who died in battle. Aengus was not sure why his father had sent him here, but he was resolved to go through with it. So he walked up and said forth, "Hello there. I am Aengus Og of Brunabonia, and I am searching for someone. My father says you can help me." And the Morrigan looked at him and said, "I can help you, but will I help you?" Aengus said, "Will you? I just, please?" She said, "Very well. You, son of my daughter's father, you I will help. But in exchange, I ask for 3 things." And Aengus said, knowing of his love for the mysterious woman, wanted to say, "Yes, I will do anything, of course. No matter the cost, I will do anything." But this was the Morrigan. He was not going to do anything. She said, "What do you want me to do?" She said, 3 simple things. At some point in the future, you will foster a child, and I want you to give that child a gift. Okay? I want you to give that child a love spot. A spot on their face that anyone who sees it will fall madly in love with them. A nice gift. And Aengus said, that seems like something he would do anyway. It seems like a nice gift. Nothing could go wrong with that. So he said, "Yes, I'll do that. Although I'm worried about your interest in my future foster child." She said, "Do not worry. Your child shall not die in battle. There's a second thing. In the future, At some point, I will come to you, and we will travel to the ends of the world for one night to visit the old cities in the north. Okay, that again doesn't seem too crazy. I will do that. And the third thing, and she says, this, and she took out a hazel wand, said, I want you to give this to the sons of Turin. Turin doesn't have any sons. Not yet, she said. But when he does, you will give this hazel wand to them. Again, all this seems quite reasonable. No one's dying. I'm in. This is great. And you won't hurt my foster child or anything like that. Everything's going to be fine. She said, yes, you are fine. I've loved too. I once had a child, a son that I loved very, very much, until Dian Cecht killed him. So my vengeance is not against you, Aengus Og. So be on your way and know that the woman you are looking for is called Caer, and she lives at Loch Bhuaile Dragoon. If you can find her there, have a nice life. He blinked again, and all he saw was a hooded crow flying away into the distance. It was time to get out of this fecking wood. He got out and he ran back home. Grabbing his friends, he said, I've got a lead. I'm getting out of here, but we've got to go to Loch Bhuaile Dragoon because that apparently is where she is, and she's called Caer. So we've got a name, we can find things out. And so the word went out. Now, not just a description, but a name and a place of origin. This is all we need to get the contact tracing we have. We can find out where she is. We can get some information. Let's go. And the stories came back almost immediately. People had heard of Caer. Some people said she was born of a Fomorian. An evil creature was her mother, who had placed a curse on her. Others said she had two fathers, two druids, who feared her because of the fact that she had more power than he did, that she was a greater druid than they were. Others said all sorts of different things, but when they finally arrived at the loch, they realized the most important thing that people had left out. For flying around that loch were 50 white swans. And those swans were tied with silver chains. But one of the white swans had a gold chain around her neck. And Aengus knew at that point, oh, she's a swan. Right. This complicates things. It also makes sense that all her old Instagram photos are just of nice lakes. Okay, this is time to do stuff. I'm gonna sort this out. Clearly, she's under a curse. I'm off. And he went back to decide what to do. And he talked to the various druids around. He talked to the magic people. He decided that this was the time that he would understand things. And then, as he was preparing, one night when he was asleep, I'm going to close the chat. One night when he was asleep, she appeared again in his dream. And he called out, he said, Caer, Caer. And she said, yes, Aengus. I saw you. She's like, I know. I was a swan. I'm not always a swan. Once a year, I'm a human at Loch Bhuaile Dragoon. Maybe you can come there and Samhain. He said, but I need to be with you. And she said, how powerful is your magic, Aengus? He said, I will make it powerful. And she said, I hope so. Come on down. And so Aengus prepared with all the herbs and the words and the songs and the spirits that he could, and he went to Loch Whale Dragoon, and he prepared his magic. He stuck a staff into the water and he stirred it. He threw the herbs around, and as the swans flew around, they landed and turned into people. And there was Caer, and she walked up towards him and said, "Well, how powerful is your magic?" And he said, "I will give you all I have." And so he did. And he cast his spell. And with that, he turned himself into a swan. As did she. And they flew off together to work the great magics that she was doing. But once a year, he would come back as a man to carry out his duties. But for the rest of his life, he would follow her. The end.
I have to say though, I don't like the gift. I don't like that gift of everybody falling madly in love with the child. That's terrifying.
The love spot. Gordon, that was so good.
Good.
Gordon, that was so good.
So much.
Really awesome.
I'm not saying I.
Like a sad story.
Was that?
Was the one before this a sad story?
It was less.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The first one was less. Delighted. The story that comes after this one is The Pursuit of Dermot and Grania, which is epic and sad and tragic and so on, and also involves the love spot that he has. And the whole thing with the Morrigan and Dean Kecht is like just this weird ass story of like, what the hell's going on there? But yeah, they're all a bit strange and interrelated, but they're fun.
How does he have foster children if he's a swan?
Oh, so this is much later when he's, basically there's all these sort of bits and cycles that at one point the Tuatha De Danann leave Ireland and they're like, we're fecking off to the other world, and they hang around there. So at that point they're like swan, human, whatever. And he fosters Dermot, who is like just a human from one of the next lot of invaders, the Sons of Mill, and who's one of the Fianna. So it's like a completely different cycle of stories. Like this was the mythological, then there's like the Ulster cycle, and then there's the Fianna cycle, and they all are just a big mishmash of mush. Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle is Swan Lake.
Yes. A lot of swan stuff. Like the Children of Lear is one of these.
I was going to say, I thought it was, when you said the swans, I was like, is this the Children of Lear? Or is this another bunch of like princes that have been turned into swans? Get some new ideas, Ireland.
And like, I definitely remember there being other stories where people turn into swans at the end.
Yeah. The swan is seen as this liminal being because it's like it can fly and it can also wander around and land like wah, 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 and live in the water. So it's got like magical properties because it can move through the three worlds.
And it can break a man's arm.
Yes.
And honestly, like it's a lot more compelling than the whole like Christmas royalty thing as far as themes go of overarching stories made by a group of people. So yeah, I'll take swans. Princess swans.
I love when his mum says, I don't care what the price is because it's not going to hurt my son. It's just like, I can just screw up everything else, it's fine.
And it's true, her son is fine. Like Aengus he's a happy life. Yeah. Yeah.
As happy as you can be while being in a myth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he get turned into a swan at any point?
So positive. I mean, Diarmuid doesn't, so that's okay.
So more myths next week?
What's that?
More myths next week then?
I mean, there's the whole theatre cycle to go through in order to get to understand. So yeah, there's a lot of them. So if people want more, we can do more.
More myths.
More myths.
Frankie can heckle again. It'll be fine.
I really enjoyed being able to heckle freely in the chat. God, don't read the chat while you're like that. That's a rookie mistake. How do you see how distracting it is?
It's hard not to though, because the most recent one always comes up at the bottom, doesn't it? Or did you figure out a way to turn that off?
Oh, the old one did that as well.
I just try and like unfocus my eyes and not read them.
You could probably get another window to cover it or something.
But there's a little bit of tape on it.
Masking tape solves many problems.
It's true.
Really. Gordon, that was fucking great, and yeah, I would be totally up for having it again if you.
Yeah, it was so good. I was impressed how much. I mean, I'm definitely one of the people in the don't know anything about Irish myths at all category, and I was impressed how much you made that story intelligible without us needing to have backstory. I don't know if that's just you picked two stories that are really standalone, or if you kind of infilled just the right amount of background information to make it make sense. But normally I find with myths, you have to know all of them, otherwise you won't understand any of them.
I'm hoping it's the second part, because it was sort of like there's a lot of these myths, depending on the sources you look at, like they can be very short and weird and not really have the context of why people do things.
Yeah.
And you know, that's obviously up to individual people who are telling the story can decide that. Like, you know, is Achilles doing this because he's sad or because he's furious? Like, I mean, all we know is he's crying, so it could be anything. So yeah, so part of it's that, but yeah.
Well, well done.
So all Norse myths, which are just Loki and Thor bumping around, backing things up.
Yeah.
Sometimes Loki and other people. Loki picks up a lot of people.
Sometimes just Loki on his own, you know?
Yeah.
You don't need a sidekick when it comes to fucking shit up.
But it's more fun if you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good if you can have someone to like shift the blame onto.
I mean, someone's got to hold the camera while you Instagram it.
They're on your story, Loki. What have you got in?
I've just read a bag of Tato Barry's tea in a snack box.
Hi, Mike.
Gordon, that was in response to the three things. I was like,
I mean, it's quality three things. Why not? Oh dear. Yeah. I was going to say the name, by the way, of the daughter of the Dagda and the Morrigan is Bridget. I don't know if Bridget is still here. Yes. So like it's an old school name of like a kick-ass goddess.
Bridget, while you're here, thank you very much for the book. I got the book through. Oh, we can't hear anything.
Oh, if only they could respond.
You got a thumbs up. That's the main thing. Right, I'm going to slope off. Thank you so much, Gordon.